I think a better mental model, given these facts, for understanding blockchains is thinking of them as cities. Now, why cities? So the first thing, of course, about cities is that cities are also physically constrained. Cities are also arguably networks, right? Like, so, a city like New York City, it's got hubs, it's got, roads, people connect there. There's a lot of people who come together in New York City, but it is physically constrained. Cities cannot be arbitrarily big, right? But they have actually a lot of properties in common with blockchains. And so if you want to imagine blockchains as cities, the best way to understand why is it that we have, going back to this analogy of like, why is there Ethereum and Solana and Avalanche and all these other things? Well, so imagine that Ethereum is New York City. So Ethereum is New York City, and if you know anything about New York City, you know that New York City is a very important city. It's a popping place. There's amazing culture there. There's a lot of really wealthy people. Yeah. Some of the most important celebrities and most important companies in the world are based in New York. It's a very historic city, but it's also really friggin' expensive. It's crowded, it's congested.
It's got some problems.
Everything costs money. It's got some problems. It's really old. Like the infrastructure is kind of crumbling in a lot of different ways. People love to complain about New York City, but they also know, they're like, look, the reason why all the people in New York City are there, despite all these problems, is that it is the most happening place in America, right? It is kind of pound for pound, per block, per sort of square mile, the most culturally significant, probably most wealthiest, most kind of cultural innovation is happening in New York City.
It speaks to it's expensive because it's important, right? People want to live there
Exactly.
because it's the cultural center, it's the financial center, and that dictates that, hey, there's a limited amount of real estate. New York City cannot expand out forever, right? Kind of why this analogy works well with blockchains. And so the real estate that does exist ends up being much, much more valuable.
That's right. And so, if you compare that to Ethereum, it's kind of the same story, right? In New York, you've got the most important, banks and financial institutions. In Ethereum, you've got the most important DeFi protocols. They're all on Ethereum. You've got, the most important cultural institutions, celebrities, lots of television and things like that come from New York. It's also where you've got the biggest DAOs. You've got the most NFTs. You've got, the most interesting cultural moments, Constitution DAO and all this stuff. It all happened on Ethereum. And it's also got the most wealth, right? So New York is home to some of the richest people in the world. And the same thing is true for Ethereum.
Yeah, so this analogy ends up explaining a little bit about why we have other networks as well, right? I mean, Ethereum is New York City. It's the cultural center of crypto, of smart contract chains at least. Has so many things going for it, but as you say, it's expensive. It's broken in some ways. A lot of people rail against it because it's way too expensive for their uses. And so suddenly we have other cities popping up. Now, the question I kind of have here, or at least my mental model is, why do we need other cities to begin with? And the answer is around scalability. We want these cities to be able to serve the purposes of everybody, but not everybody can live in New York City, right? Ethereum cannot possibly, scale by itself to the level to have millions and millions of transactions per second because, again, of that physical constraint we've already talked about. And so
a lot of people now are priced down, right? Like Ethereum fees are so high. It seems that, if you're a young, hungry artist, it's very tough to go to Manhattan today and go try to make a living there. Like you have to go find someplace new where it's more affordable and you can really build a life for yourself. And that's what a lot of people who find themselves on Ethereum say, look, Ethereum's great, but I can't afford it here. I'm too late. It's time for me to go somewhere new. And that's where you kind of open up the different doors to how you end up scaling a city.
Yeah.
Now, when you're scaling a city, there are multiple different approaches to how you scale. Let's say, okay, we know New York it's full, it's expensive. We want to scale past New York. How do we scale a city? There are a few different approaches. The first approach is to build up. So this is, in the real world, in real cities, that's called building skyscrapers, right? Investing in skyscraper technology. So New York, I can see behind you, there's some skyscrapers behind you in downtown Austin. Every major city, when they get full enough, they start building upward. And in Ethereum, the equivalent of this is rollups. Rollups are the equivalent of building upward, right? And why are rollups like building upward? So very briefly, just to summarize what a rollup is. So a rollup is a layer 2 solution, meaning it's a solution that's built on top of the underlying blockchain or on top of the underlying layer 1. It's sort of rooted in the layer 1. It's almost like a little mini blockchain, kind of extends out from the layer 1, but derives its security from the underlying layer 1. So it's not like a separate blockchain in the sense that you have to trust a whole new set of validators or trust a whole new set of Genesis block and all this other stuff. Instead, it has the same trust properties as the underlying blockchain in the same way that if you live in a high rise, in Austin, the laws of Austin still apply to you. It's not, although it is physically different, it's sort of almost like a city that's built upwards on top of Austin, but really you're still in Austin. You still have the laws and the building codes and all the other things in Austin apply to you. And if you want to go downstairs and go see someone who's in another high rise, right? If you see someone in your high rise, it's nice. It's air conditioned the whole way. But if you want to go and see someone in another high rise, you have to go all the way down to the street. You have to go, take a cab or take an Uber or whatever, get across town and go to that other person's high rise. And that means that although you are living in this special space that is made a lot more space for you, it's a lot cheaper to live in a high rise than to live, in a house in Austin per se. But it requires you to still have to interact with the underlying city. You don't escape Austin just because you're living in a high rise. In the same way, if you live in a layer 2 on top of Ethereum, it allows you to have much lower fees than you'd have directly operating on top of Ethereum. But if you want to interact with somebody who's in a different rollup, you have to leave your rollup, go down to Ethereum, pay Ethereum fees, go into that other rollup, and there's also these exit games which require time, and there's all these issues with actually getting across town to go to the other rollup on Ethereum. And so rollups are a big part of the solution of how you scale a city, but they are not themselves sufficient to answer the entire. Like the answer was not we built high rises in New York and then no one ever left New York and everyone lives in New York now.